show. You're listening to Jax and Dan on Colourful. We'll be with you until 1 o'clock. We've been talking everything from David Starkey to Newsnight Question Time, Young Person's Question Time, and everything in between. And we had Katrina get in touch with us via email. And Katrina is on the line now. She was actually the young lady, if you watch Young Person's Question Time, she was the young lady who, at the end of the show, when they were trying to put all of the focus on the Reeves family and the loss of their shop, who actually then interjected and shouted out, how about asking Mark Duggan's family how they're feeling. So thanks for joining us, Katrina.
Thank you for having me.
So I understand. Tell me what you were saying with me on off air about what you've been studying and why you felt it was important to get involved with Young Person's Question Time.
Well, as a young black person who was raised from a one-parent family, grew up with my grandparents and my mother, I thought it was important for me to go along because I didn't have great opportunities, but I managed to go to the University of Cambridge and study social and political science, which gave me a much greater understanding of where I'm coming from, the obstacles that face ethnic minorities and working people as a whole. So I thought that was pertinent for someone like myself with a great education, but also the life consciousness to go along to such a debate and be able to contribute and explain why I feel that these riots, looting, protests have to be understood in a socio-political context in which they've taken place. And I drew the comparison between when people would have said in the 80s, why are the townships in Soweto rebelling? Because there's something taking place, there's social and political reasons that it's the same in London, it's the same in South America, it's the same everywhere. So it's essential for someone with, I feel, the education that I have, the principles that I have and the upbringing that I've had to go along to such a debate and feel like I can contribute with basically valid points. But unfortunately, the BBC wouldn't allow people like me to have such a voice.
Katrina, first of all, wow, and congratulations, and great to have you on. You're exactly who needs to be talking, so we're really just going to listen to you for a little bit. Tell us about your experience then on the day, because it seems like it was not a great experience for you in terms of the BBC and their handling of you, and then just go into a little bit of detail for us, if you can, about why you think the riots began themselves.
Okay, well, we'll start off with, I was quite vocal on my Facebook page about what had been going on, so quite political, posting lots of things. I was actually at work at the time. I worked for a local authority, and someone pinged me on my BlackBerry Messenger and said, you have to go to the show. I called the lady immediately, secured myself a ticket, and rushed straight from work. Been at work since 9 o'clock, rushed straight from work over to Shepherd's Bush and wanted to participate. I arrived, we had to email some questions. My questions were, can someone explain why the police do not have a consistent approach to dealing with suspected armed males? And I gave the example of Roaul Moat and Mark Saunders, both of whom had a standoff for over 5 hours with police despite being a public hazard and were not shot down immediately. They were negotiated with. My second question was, why is it the media continuously say to people who try and, as I say, explain, not excuse the riots or the protests and explain, are you condoning them? Just because you have an explanation for something does not mean it's a justification. So I felt quite annoyed that every time a person of ethnic minority, or to be honest, the person who was talking, it's a class war out here, it's not even an ethnic minority war, it's class warfare. They tried to discuss anything to do with it. It was seen as though they were condoning what was clearly violence and criminality. So I felt that the media put up a juxtaposition from the outset to say, if you try to give any sort of reasoning for why this was happening, because let's be honest, nothing is mindless.
Yeah.
A paedophile likes children because that's their sexual preference. A looter stealing something because they have a benefit to steal it and they're going to sell it on or do something with it. Nothing's mindless. You know, it's mindless to try and say that something else is mindless, in my opinion. So I went along because I had all of these questions that I felt needed raising. I submitted them. I entered the BBC with search like everybody else, went through a metal detector. And when we got in, there was lots of police. I mean, like more police on the inside of the BBC than there were on the outside. Some used as we went along. I wasn't stop and search, but some of the chaps behind me were. And the only common denominator I saw was that they were non-white.
Amazing that, isn't it? Amazing, given everything that's happened, that the police should be so open about that in that environment, of all environments.
Well, to be honest, I don't know if they were looking for a 50-inch TV in the back of their pocket or to check that the clothes they had tags on them, but I don't understand what exactly they were searching them for unless they were looking, to be honest, for narcotics, because you've been through a metal detector. So any sort of blunt or sharp instrument would have been picked up by the BBC's metal detector, would it have not? So I don't understand the point of the search. So they were searched. We then were mingling for about an hour and a half in a holding room because it was a live show. And we had a chance to meet people, see what they felt. And there were two actual chaps who were very articulate, very passionate, young black guys saying, like, this is why they felt the riots happened. Now, let me be real. I can speak road. I can say wagwan, and I can say how do you do. There's a hat for everything.
Exactly.
But these guys maybe were not as articulate as myself, but their points were very valid despite how they were articulating them. Well, as we went to go to the studio, we turned around and we realised they weren't there anymore. Another guy who had been basically with them, he wasn't with them, but as you're in the holding room, we kind of mingle. He said that the police had stopped and searched them and taken them away, and they actually wanted to take him too because they thought he was with them. So he managed to convince the police he wasn't with them, and they took them away. So those were two less people in the audience, as far as I'm concerned, that had questions that were relevant. Instead of asking things like, well, how can these people say they're poor when they have blackberries?
Yeah,
Such ridiculous questions being raised. So I was, ready. I got in there feeling quite optimistic that, we'd get a chance to ask questions. When the chat in the middle of the studio asked about smiley culture, and tried to make the point that when people who feel they've been brutalised by the police try and do peaceful protests, they're often ignored, and the media, unfortunately, choose not to cover it. So he was trying to draw the parallel with if the police had answered the questions that had been raised on Saturday by Mr. Duggan's family, or there had been a liaison involved, maybe the impetus for this would not have happened. Now, that is not to say that as a justification, a man's death for rioting in Birmingham and all over the country, but it's trying to draw back to how did we get into the position of Saturday in the first place.
Okay.
And in my honest opinion, I found that no media agency that I've looked at has picked up on this. The BBC initially did on Saturday when a chap reported that a young black girl, aged 16, was back in charge by the police outside Tottenham Police Station, and that was what initiated the riots. Now, people also have to realise, if this man was, as they said, a roadman, he will no doubt have connections with South London, North London, East London, because that's what it is. Let's say narcotics is a business for those involved. So just as Mr. W.H. Smith has stores in North or South, it's the same with their business method too. So when people in South London heard about what happened, obviously they're up in arms. Now, for me, the paradox is when our young black brothers and sisters are killing one another, they don't care. But as soon as the police get involved, we're up in arms. Now, what we need to step back and is check, if we can kill ourselves, why are we not arguing over that as opposed to police killing ourselves? Because I still see a contradiction in that. I'm not saying they don't have a right to be upset, but we have ourselves killing ourselves and no one's moaning. But then when the police are coming in and doing it, we want to start rioting. We have to, as a people, the community, look to ourselves and say, it's not right. It's not right. So I feel that the riots themselves, or the looting, it kind of spread because obviously there's BB Messenger and there's lots of connections between these gangs as much as there's lots of hatred. There's lots of people that know people. So it was, for me, no surprise that it was upset in Brixton or other places. And I did highlight in my email about the fact that my local area, Colliers Wood, was looted by, to be honest, what were predominantly non-coloured people or non-ethnic minorities. And I didn't hear a word of that in the media.
Yeah.
Didn't hear a word of it. I make the other observation, on a normal day, you see one policeman stop, one black youth being stopped by about 4 policemen in my local area of Clapham Junction. On the day of the riots, there were 200 young youth, apparently, and only 20 police officers. Where were the police officers? Now, in my honest opinion, I do believe that the next 3 years for this country are going to be very difficult, and there will be more protests, but the protests in the kind of middle England, people like you and I, people that start to see our pensions going down, our taxes going up, and us getting very little. The whole point of this was to be able to stop protest, to stop the protest movement, in my opinion. They're talking about using water cannons. Why didn't they use those for the people burning shops?
Exactly.
Why didn't they bring in the water cannons for the burning shops? You're going to use them on the people. Why not bring them in? And the poor youth have been lumbered with grown adults who should have known better.
Exactly.
That were looting. No one's talking about that. Those are grown adults. Also, where are the youth meant to get their inspiration from when you've got the police selling details to the media? 2 top police chiefs have been removed in the last month. Do we not remember that?
Right. Katrina?
When it was the G20 meetings, we had lots of police presence. 16,000, yes, it was a planned event, but they knew how to find the police for the elite. When it was the wedding, we had how much police for Charles and Kate Catherine?
You have a wealth of knowledge. We could speak to you all
Sorry,
afternoon.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
I wish everyone in London the best. All I say is, please don't brand our young youth as thugs. There's a lot going on psychologically, sociologically. It's fine to say we don't live in Africa. It's called relative deprivation. People, please go and look it up. When you live cheek and jowl with rich and poor, you cannot expect nothing but hostility. It's about the redistribution of wealth in this country. It's not about black and white. It's a class warfare, and we need to redistribute the wealth. Start taxing the rich, the corporations, and if they don't like it, tell them to come out of our country and go to another one, because we want people that will build up this country, not people that are willing to evade taxes.
Katrina, we're going to stay in touch with you because you're one to watch, and we thank you for coming on.
Please do. And young people, apply to Oxford universities. It's got all of the information there. Don't be cast out of your education. It's out there for you to go and take. Please do. Anybody wants to contact me, Katrina French, please do. I'm out there to help the people and to keep promoting positive values. Have a good day, London. Thank you.
Stay on the line, Katrina. Thank you.
Please hang up.
Very passionate, Katrina. She clearly didn't stay on the line there, but we will be back in touch with her.